Welcome to another video and happy Halloween. I'm Rich Wilson, founder and film director of Vibe Media, where we help your brand build to an influencer level online presence using filmmaking tools and tips to tell your story. Hey, we have another episode of Vibe Check for you today, and in this episode we discuss our views on the Best Picture and Best Director Oscar winner of this year, Parasite. Now, this is our first of our movie challenges where we challenged each other to watch movies that we have either not seen before or haven't seen in a while. That way we can get some fresh perspectives on the story, the cinematography, and over our overall reactions to the movies that we love. Stop! Hold up! Before we start, huge spoiler warnings. Before we get into the episode, we dive deep into every aspect of the movie. So if you haven't seen it, pause the video right now, go watch it, and we'll be back here when you get back. Okay, you back? Great! Now that you've watched the movie, join in on our conversation. Let us know what you thought about the movie in the comments below. So, without further ado, on with the episode! Hey everybody, welcome to Vibe Check, the podcast for aspiring filmmakers and film enthusiasts. I'm Rich Wilson, founder and director at Vibe Media, and with me as always is Forrest and Dana, also with
Hello.
Vibe Media. And this is our Halloween episode.
Yay.
We don't even need a voiceover. It's just
Yeah, no, I know.
He's already on it. Oh, so yeah, we're here with decked out with all of our Halloween decorations as much as possible. I had to grab some out of storage.
Happy Halloween.
So the rest of it's set up at my house already. Because Halloween is amazing.
Oh, my parents' house, if you guys saw coming in because we actually film this in a small studio next to my family's house, and it's decked out. We got the gallows up and a bunch of things getting ready for tomorrow night. Can't wait. Yes, I don't know what it's going to look like because of 2020, but we are planning on moving forward. And but yeah, we are going to talk about so a couple episodes ago we challenged each other to watch a certain movie, and some of these episodes we're going to talk about those films. And now is time to turn in our homework to Dana, because Dana is the one who
I recommended Parasite because it is a phenomenal movie, and I feel like both of you would find something you'd like about it, whether it's the story or the cinematography or just the characters alone. So, did you guys watch the movie?
Yeah.
watched it.
The full 2.5 hours?
Watched it, yes.
Very much so.
What'd you think? What was first impressions?
Well, I had talked to you guys earlier about this just before we started this, that I was really making sure that I was watching the right one because it was categorized as a comedy on Hulu, and I was
really
thrown for a loop. I was like, is there a different Parasite that I should be watching? Started watching it, and I was like, makes sense. Foreign film, it looks familiar as far as what I've seen for previews. Mm-hmm. It was funny at the very beginning and everything, and that house, though, man.
That house.
An architectural.
Amazing, right?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It gave me. It's always nice in movies that are horror based or kind of a little creepy when there's a house that's just so perfect. It's the same for like Dial M for Murder, that remake they did with the atrium in the middle of the house,
right.
And like all these things that have such like beautiful big empty rooms because it's very sleek and minimal. So I think it helped a lot for the vibe of the movie.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too was to kind of help, not to jump too far ahead of myself, but to divide the classism. You see them in a home, in like a small home, in a basement, in an alleyway, and then they move up and go up this hill to like this beautiful luxurious home where everything in it is perfect. Mm-hmm. Like symmetry wise, like structure wise. Yeah. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think first impressions for me, well, after I watched the movie, I was like, what?
Yes, you texted me. You're like, what was that?
I don't think I've had so much anxiety driven in a movie in a long time. But it was amazing. Yeah, I could totally see why it won Best Picture at the Oscars and Best Director and Best Screenplay. You know, it was just an amazing piece of art that, and I will say, I was a little bit, not skeptical, but I was a little bit nervous because, you know, Dana, you and I have talked about this before. We both like anime, but I'm more of a dub guy because I just don't have the patience to read subtitles.
And I'm a sub girl. So.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. I just don't have the patience to read subtitles, but this movie, the pacing of it was so right that I actually could enjoy the visuals of the movie.
Yeah.
Without having to always like read
That's
the entire
what I
time.
was going to bring up here is as somebody who does cinematography, I love foreign films, but that's the one thing I always struggle with is, you know, if you don't speak the language and you're having to read the subtitles, you're missing out on the visuals of the movie.
Right.
Pan's Labyrinth is one that is another good example of a good kind of pace where you can kind of keep up with everything. But, this film strikes the perfect balance. It was well timed. I didn't miss out on anything for cinematography wise. I was watching it and loved every minute of it.
Yeah, I think it can especially be seen when the mom and the other mom are sitting down over what they call it, like Ramadan or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And she's eating and they're having this conversation and you can keep up with what they're saying to each other and still watch them on screen while it's happening. And I feel like that moment right there really kind of made me realize like what was going on with the pacing. I was like, oh, okay, I'm able to maintain understanding their entire conversation and still visually see like how they're feeling, what their reactions are to it, like what they're also doing on screen as far as like eating or like hand gestures go.
Well, and that's kind of the height of the movie too. I mean, again, I understand now why it was labeled as comedy because it does start out and there's very funny the actual actors and the acting in it. There are a lot of one-off quips.
Oh yeah.
It is very funny. And then it turned in at the end too. It gave me vibes of.
It turns quickly.
It turns
total
quickly.
180.
It's like a total 180. It gave me vibes of, I don't know if you guys have seen Uncut Gems.
Yes.
The Adam Sandler movie.
I have not seen that.
So that one gave me anxiety in a different way. This one kind of gave me that same, like, you're just tense. It harkens back to like Scream. The Scream movies are some of my favorites for suspense because Wes Craven is phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
It's just, or Us too, another movie.
The Jordan Peele one.
Yeah. That same, just the whole last part of the movie, I was just like this the whole time, just like, oh, like so awkward or so you're waiting for something to go wrong.
Yeah.
In all these right moments, and it seemed like everything kind of was going smooth and then didn't, and you're just on the edge of your seat the whole time.
A lot of it for me too was I'm not to like toot my own horn, but I'm someone who can kind of unravel the plot from a movie within like the first 20-30 minutes of it. You can kind of tell the direction someone wants to go with it. This movie, I had no idea where it was going to go. There was no like, I mean, yes, there was some foreshadowing, but it wasn't as obvious as it is in certain movies.
Right. Well, because you were so focused on the one family who was conning the rich family, right? That you didn't even see what was going on the other hand. You didn't even think about that there was even another hand. Mm-hmm. You were just watching this journey of like, oh, he's a tutor. Now he cons them into bringing his sister in. Then they con in their dad, and then con in the mom, and kick the other housekeeper out. And
that part I think was kind of predictable. That's where it fell into the classic trope.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I get why it's called Parasite
because they're sucking these people dry.
So
you know?
you get it for the first hour. You're like, okay, I know how this is gonna go, and it's sad. They're gonna fire the housekeeper or whatever. But then again, a complete 180, and you're just like, whoa, like what happened?
What was that?
And the end, the creepiness factor of it, there's a lot of things that just are jarring in this film. And again, without the it's great actors. I think that's what
absolutely.
It a lot. For me being an American that doesn't understand the language they're speaking, they still did a great job at inflection, at everything else they needed to portray their actual emotions.
They really set the tone of anxiety inducing because you're like, well, what's the ulterior motive here? Because they don't, it's not very obvious what they're trying to do. It's not obvious that he's trying to, like, I mean, it is obvious when he brings his sister in and his dad in, but
what's the end goal?
Yeah, are they trying to, like, get money from this family? Like, what is the whole purpose about getting everyone involved in this group, in, like, this nice family that has, like, this really wonderful lifestyle, and it's so perfect, and they're just kind of coming in and causing waves.
See, I saw it as them just trying to cheat the system pretty much, because, you know, obviously you don't want, like, if you bring in a tutor and then you bring in like an art person and a housekeeper and a driver, you don't want them all be part of the same family.
No, and I think that's why they all gave themselves individual
Absolutely.
backgrounds.
And they were, you know, one small income. Like, if I remember the first of the movie, nobody was really working. They were folding pizza boxes fairly poorly. And now they've got this 4 great jobs that is bringing a ton of money into this family, you know, it was kind of a cheat the system kind of thing. They were con artists.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think there was a moment when they were hiring the new housekeeper, and she was asking for your IDs and the deed to the house, that I was like, oh, maybe the long con is going to be that they're going to kill them and take over their identities, something of that nature.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. I just thought that they were just in it for the money.
Yeah, but it never came to fruition. It was
Yeah.
one of those that, like, my brain kind of went there when it was like, why would you need the deed to the house unless you were trying to take the house from them, something of that nature. There's a lot of cool twists and turns. I mean, again, going back to the house itself, I was laughing because I had my buddy there watching it with me, and as he's walking up the stairs and the lights go on, and I'm like, oh, those are really cool, like, motion sensor lights.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I thought it was amazing.
That's
really
what you
cool.
think.
And then later on, you find out you're like, what's going... I didn't know that it was a person doing it the whole time because he's out of his mind. Like...
Was he out of his mind, though, or was he so into his own mind that he created his own little world and felt like he was obligated to do these things for this family?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that does bring up a point, because remember, he almost like worshipped.
Yeah, he literally thought
dad.
they were the reason why.
The rich dad.
Yeah. He thought that he had, like, this wonderful life living underneath the house because of this father.
Yeah.
Well, and it's the interesting dichotomy there between essentially the film title, Parasite, somebody being a parasite and leeching off of a family and harming the host, versus somebody who it's a symbiotic relationship where they're both benefiting. His wife had a job there and was getting paid well. He was getting fed every day. As much as they were poor, they were still able to live in this secure place. It wasn't the greatest condition, but they had all the necessities they needed, all the food. So maybe that's where his mindset was more of, like, being thankful because it's a host giving back to the person, but not harming them in that kind of way.
I agree. He was also living there to avoid debt collectors, so he could continue living and maintain.
True. And we're talking about the old housekeeper's husband that you didn't even know who was there until...
Everyone thought he was the ghost that the little boy was seeing, and it turns out it was just some crazy man living under his house.
And that was the big twist of the movie. You know, I remember texting you just saying, "Oh, hey, I'm watching it," and I took a picture, and it was the scene where the family that we are following in the movie is all sitting there in the rich family's living room, and they're all eating their food, drinking their booze, and it's... You know, it was a fun, interesting, and they're doing that because the rich family's gone, right? You know, the little boy in the movie, he's having a birthday, and he cannot have a birthday in his own house because of something happened, you know, earlier on that, you know, which we find out later in the movie as well, why, but it's amazing. But then the family comes back.
Well, but before that...
Oh, yeah. Before
the
that.
maid comes.
The maid,
and then
the old housekeeper.
Be a whole nother twist.
Yeah.
You think the maid's coming to kill everybody because she's pissed.
Yeah, like the old the old housekeeper comes back. And she's like, I left something. And then she's trying to move like a bookcase, and you're like, what? And then you find out there's a bomb shelter underneath the glorious house. What?
And then the family coming back at 8 minutes, having to prepare the food while everything's a mess. She's scooping
Getting everyone out.
She's scooping food into drawers. They're hiding under the different rooms. Like, they all happen to be in the exact room they're not supposed to be. The one kid's trying to put the diary back of the girl that he has a crush on.
Yeah.
And then, the daughter is hiding somewhere else, and they're scooping everything under this table. Then, of course, the family wants to sleep out on the table because the kid wants to go outside, and that's awkward.
That
whole scene.
that whole scene just went from, when the housekeeper came and you find out that, there's a bomb shelter. The old housekeeper's husband's been living down there for 7 years, and then it just goes crazy. It goes crazy because now you have two families that are parasiting against this family, and now they are basically battling with one another until the family comes back, and now it's just a free-for-all trying to survive. Fortunately, the old housekeeper gets kicked down the stairs and dies, which brings up a whole other climax as well. My mind is like twisting around when watching this movie.
It's a lot to take in, and that's why Bong Joon-ho is like genuinely one of my favorite directors ever, because he accomplishes stuff like that. I mean, if you go back and watch all of his other movies, like Mother, same type of, obviously not the same type of plot twists, but it's like the same type of anxiety-inducing feeling of like, what's going to happen next, and then it ends up just 180ing, and it goes a different route that you don't expect at all, and you're just like, what am I watching? How did it become like this murder horror movie?
And how many 180s can there be? Because you're like, oh, maybe 180s can only go back the other way, but then
then it goes the other way.
No, it's a 720 this time, and a 278 degree, and you're like, it keeps just twisting in weird ways.
We're gonna be obtuse for a second, and then.
It was, a great movie. It's, cinematography-wise, again, I love it. That house is beautiful. It makes for a great backdrop of everything.
Absolutely.
Clean. You can tell that, everything's supposed to be perfect, and then when everything isn't perfect, it gives you more of that tension. The crumbs under the couch.
The crumbs
they're
under
like,
yeah.
How do they not notice? They're going to step on a piece of glass. Something's going to cause this reveal.
I was waiting for something to happen to where everything was going to fall apart. And you don't get that. Well, it did, but you didn't get that till the end. I'm talking about the scene when they're sneaking around the house.
I'm talking about the scene where they all leave the house right after that, and they go home and find their own house
and their own
completely
house
flooded and destroyed. Meanwhile, they're taking care of this other family's home. They're neglecting theirs. They're not really like focusing on their own lives. They're so focused on portraying these other people and keeping up with these lives that they even start washing their clothes with different detergent because the kid smells that
they all smell the same.
Yeah.
Well, and then because they're doing this double life, they also, after that flood happens, when they're being invited to this party and for the kid, and all of them have to act like everything's normal. Like they weren't there last night, they weren't sneaking out of the house,
right?
They didn't have their house flooded. They have to act like they're back the next day, all their separate lives, and that culmination of the fancy family, just that smell that they keep harping on, that he
the
smells
radishes.
bad because he smells like old radishes or like sewage, and it's that ticking that's driving him crazy because he's been looked down upon his whole life,
right?
And it just eventually
snaps,
and it just wow, just wow. And it gets crazy because the son goes down into the basement. The son who was the tutor goes down into the basement to see what was happening,
that scene
and
was
then
crazy.
that is where everything again started falling apart again. That was one of the other twists, because the old housekeeper's husband is not tied up, because they tied him up earlier in the movie. He's not tied up. Everything is he escapes. He then just goes crazy. He comes out, and then everything just
unravels.
I knew something was going to happen when the thing was tied around his neck. He was running up the stairs, and then he gets obviously caught there, but I wasn't expecting the rock to be like thrown at his head, and then
I thought he was dead after
Me
that.
too.
I thought he was
Me
dead,
too.
And then again to do it again and see his fingers twitch, and you're just like, whoa.
It felt too real.
It
to
was
watch.
very
Yeah.
visceral, and I think that's why it made the uncomfortableness too, is because it is so real. It's one of those like
You could
knew
feel
it
it.
was happening, and you're like, oh, it's that visceral pain.
Yeah, and then the guy comes out, and then he starts hacking and slashing, and then everybody's running around. The daughter dies, and spoiler alert. Sorry, guys. If you
This has all
you
been
know, like,
spoiler alerts.
obviously, like this is us reviewing. This is a
Well, but then the last little bit that kind of set not the one that's been locked in the basement dad forever, but the actual dad of this family was when the guy was only caring about his family. He needed to get his son to the hospital and wasn't worrying about his daughter that was dying there. Although, he can't possibly know that it's his daughter. So it's an unjust reason to be mad at somebody, but also,
He's human.
yeah, he's
Right.
human because it is his daughter. So it's just the culmination of everything all at once was beautiful. The way they did
it was a fantastic movie.
I was wondering, at the end when the son figures out his dad's there, it was a good twist as far as him hiding in the house. But I'm wondering how he got the message to his father, because he said it goes over him writing the letter back to his father saying, I'm going to buy the house and you'll just have to walk up the stairs.
Yeah.
But like, how did he know?
That was also very interesting too, because despite everything that happened, it ended on a hopeful note. A weird, twisted, hopeful note, but it was still kind of hopeful because then father and son are reunited. Father, son, and mother.
And you can only obviously hope that will happen because
Right.
you just don't know the outcome. Life isn't always like a movie, and I feel like this movie really created that, that truth that it's not always going to go according to plan because the son is always trying to have a plan, and the dad even says, the best type of plan is to have no plan at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is like the main motive in the movie. The son is always trying to create a plan. Even in the ending scene, he has a plan to save his dad.
Mm-hmm.
But what of his plans have actually worked? So how do we know that this is actually
That it
gonna
actually happened.
work?
Right.
I also really liked that he looked, all like different and nice and cute, like a K-pop star, like in his like fantasy. Like it was, like when it switched, I was like, when did this happen?
I was half expecting his friend to come back who
Mm-hmm.
had left him with this family, essentially, because he said that I want you to watch after this girl while I'm gone.
Because he wants to marry
'Cause
her.
He wants to marry her.
Right,
And then he ends
right.
up getting involved with this girl. So I was waiting for this culmination of like the best friend coming back and that being another layer, and that kind of never happened.
So I think his friend was another victim, like another host victim of them being parasites, because he stole his friend's plan. He wanted to marry the sister, or I'm sorry, not the sister, the daughter. And he
The rich daughter,
he wanted to tutor her. He literally explained the same plan his friend gave him at the beginning to his parents halfway through the movie when they're all in the living room.
Yeah, that's right.
So I feel like a lot of it is they're all parasites within the family in their own way.
Well, what does this say also about society in general? It's always said sometimes that film is the art of reality, right? There's some kind of reality undertones. What do you think those might be?
Well, and it has that ongoing message of, you hear it a lot nowadays, like, eat the rich. It's, the rich are these evil people. But in this instance, I don't think the rich people were evil at all.
They were just living
providing
their
jobs
lives.
to people. They were
Sure.
treating this family nice. I mean, although they had their qualms with his smell or whatever it happens to be,
Right.
very small things in the big scheme of things. They did expect things a certain way. They required some sort of level of respect, saying don't cross these lines, but as long as you don't do that, then we're fine, which is a very human thing. They all had their own emotions, though. The mother was concerned about her son. The daughter had her own love story. The father was wanting to
He's
be normal,
there.
but also this big wig that has to keep up appearances there. And so they're a very normal, it normalized the rich family more than anybody too. Like, it's one of those interesting flips on society.
Right. Whereas you see a lot that the rich are, like you
Evil
said,
ones,
the evil
corrupt,
ones, they're
yeah.
corrupt, and that does happen. But yeah, no, it was a very interesting take.
Yeah, I feel like a big part that they were trying to say is like the difference between classism. you've got the poor people, and then you've got the rich people. And as someone who grew up poor, and, you know, we struggled. My mom was single for a while when I was a kid, and then now she's, you know, making money and all this stuff. Like, it is a very different lifestyle to adapt to.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there are different standards and expectations, and, you know, like, I feel like this movie really helped create that type of, you know, spectrum, seeing here's what it's like to be on this end, living literally in slums. This family literally lived underground
where you
on
keep
the street. Like, how much deeper can you go?
Where you keep your windows open when they're spraying the streets of
so they
insecticide
your
so then
home.
they could save on money.
And you've got to, like, use the nearest cafe's Wi-Fi and get on top of the toilet. And, like, you really get to see the struggles. And then you see them climb up this hill and go through, like, this grand entrance and be welcomed into something that they never would get to experience on their own.
Well, it's a polar opposite than some of the other movies where you do see the poor people too, where typically you don't see them as poor as this family. Like, you do see the rich as being super wealthy, so it's almost the opposite take of that, saying the most extreme example of being poor.
And that is how it is in South Korea, unfortunately. My brother travels overseas for the military, and he's like, yeah, that movie tells you how it is. Like, that's just what it's like there.
And it's showing the grass is always greener. It's that classic trope of, like, it's not always perfect on the other side. Sure, it's easier, but it's different. It comes with different struggles than it would be.
Well, I think it also humanized both. I think it tried to make a bridge, because they weren't the perfect family. It may look like that they were the perfect family, but the rich daughter was doing her own thing. The son had a bunch of different issues that he was dealing with.
The mom liked to role play as a crack whore.
Yeah, exactly. Like, she wasn't.
We all have our own.
Exactly. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't. Yeah, they had a lot of money and they had all this stuff, but they weren't this perfect, you know, easygoing family. They all had their problems. The family that we were following in the movie that were the Parasites had their problems too.
The other interesting part about this movie, though, too, is it's a movie that I've watched, first one in a long time, where I haven't really hated any character. Like, you don't, as much as, you know, the family is doing messed up things to this rich family, you understand the reason why they're doing it, so you don't
every single character
dislike them as much. Like, everybody has an actual reason for doing what they're doing, and so there's not one enemy. There's different enemies for different reasons.
It wasn't as clear as, like, back in the old Western movies where the good guy wore white hats and the bad guys always wore the black hats.
It's not always black and white. It's that
It's
middle
not.
ground
Exactly.
So I loved it. It was a great movie. I'm glad I saw it now. So
Absolutely.
I'm glad you guys saw it too.
Dana, wow. Good. I am nervous about the next one that you're going to cook up for us.
Just wait.
We'll come back. I know we got a couple more of the first round of movies that we're going to do, so I think we're planning on every other week. So next week we'll kind of talk on a random subject, something that we really want to. I don't know.
And then the week after we'll be talking about 1917. Yes, 1917, that won Best Cinematography for the Oscars this year. So I'm excited to see, or at least hear, and see what you guys thought of that movie. And again, thank you for listening to Vibe Check. Let us know what you thought of the movie. And you know, I'm still got
It's beautiful. It's a
goosebumps of it. So again, thank you so much for tuning in, and keep vibing.
Everybody be safe out there. Happy Halloween.
Bye, guys.
It's a bat. Yeah? No? Anyway. Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode and the movie like we did. Now, if you're liking the podcast, be sure to follow us, hit that like button, and also subscribe to know when we drop the latest episode each and every Friday. Also, let us know how we're doing, because we want to know. By sending us a shout out in the comments below, and because it's Halloween, let us know what your costume is going to be. What are you dressing up as tonight? Anyway, trick or treats all around, everybody. And with that, keep creating, build your brand, and go out there and tell your story.